I really like thrillers. I like the Italian giallo a lot, and thankfully most good Italian thrillers have been made available on Blu-ray in the past 3 to 5 years. We've had some essential titles finally made available, starting from Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling, which has amazing editions in a number of countries now. Even lesser titles like French Sex Murders, which I adore, but I wouldn't say this is like the mother of them all. That's been given a Blu-ray release recently. And outright sleazy movies in the style of Giallo a Venezia, for example. Even they pop up on Blu-ray. So I think the genre on the whole has been well served by the Blu-ray medium. But there are still some movies which I'd really like to get the Blu-ray treatment, which are dear to my heart. I wouldn't say they're classics, but I think they deserve a mention. And as number one, I would like to bring up Midnight Ripper, or it's known as Carol Will Die at Midnight, or the Italian title is Morirai a Mezzanotte. It's a Lamberto Bava giallo starring Paolo Malco from House by the Cemetery, and Lara Vendel, who was in Tenebrae, Ghost House, Red Monks. She's been in a bunch of movies since she was a kid. I think she's even briefly in Mio Caro Assassino, My Dear Killer. I think she might even be in that one as a kid, which is another movie which has come out recently, My Dear Killer. That's an impressive film. So Morirai a Mezzanotte, Midnight, I'll call it the Midnight Ripper. It's a co-production with TV, and the movie isn't as big budget and as lavish as some of the more famous gialli. It doesn't have that international ambience. They don't go jet-setting across the continent. So it's all in pretty much within the boundaries of Italy. And I think the main location is called Ascoli Piceno, and this is a kind of a... They use a lot this medieval, well, not medieval, they use a lot this central historic square in the city, which comes up in the opening credits. And the film utilizes locations really well. I think this is, generally speaking, of Lamberto Bava's adventures in smaller scale movies, because he kind of went from a few cinema projects to a bunch of made-for-TV movies, and I think Midnight Ripper it straddles kind of both genres. I think it had a cinema release, but looking at the movie, it also has a notable TV vibe to it, and just in terms of also how the pacing and how it's put together, it doesn't quite have the sweeping ambition of a made-for-cinema film, but still, compared to Bava's previous giallo, which was A Blade in the Dark, Midnight Ripper looks noticeably more lush. There is a number of locations. We're not trapped in one villa, and there is some more ambitious cinematography. Music, I gotta say, Morirai a Mezzanotte, Midnight Ripper has a fantastic score from Simonetti, Claudio Simonetti. When he's on his own, he delivers some of his best scores. I would name two, one being Midnight Ripper, fantastic score, and the other being Cut and Run. Both movies where I would say the score adds so much to the overall experience. Neither film is perfect, but the music is fantastic. I think Morirai a Mezzanotte would look fantastic in Blu-ray, because what we have in DVD now, there is a German DVD, there is an Italian DVD. This movie shows a lot of promise in terms of its chromatic quality, in terms of colors. It doesn't have that expressive candy-colored light because it comes from the late 80s, so if we're speaking of stylistic influences, Tenebrae would be immediately there as a template in terms of they blast a lot of cold light onto the actors, and the certain shots even in the set pieces, they might, kind of bring back memories of Tenebrae, which isn't a bad thing. Isn't a bad thing at all, because I'm a fan of Tenebrae. There is a number of familiar faces there. You'll spot some supporting actors who you've seen either from Demons or from The Beyond. Lara Vendel is pretty good as the female protagonist, as our, you could say, final girl. The twist, there is, the way they disguise the killer is not really fair. This movie doesn't really play fair in terms of, pulling a fast one on you in the end, revealing the killer, because if you follow the story through, you can tell, okay, there's been cheating. But by 1987, the Giallo has even its literary antecedents. You know, this whole murder mystery with a surprise final twist has really run its course, and creatives in every genre were looking for ways around that. So let's not be too harsh on Midnight Ripper. It has a great atmosphere. There's a fantastic scene towards the end on this mist-laden beach. You know, the last third of the movie shifts to this out-of-season hotel, which is kind of similar. If you remember the movie Torso, they kind of also shifted everything to this secluded house, and that's similar, but again, the movie has a completely different look and does it with a different attitude. There is the killer stalking the final girl through these, there are these changing cabins, and it's kind of the beach at winter time, and there are some cutaway shots to that seaside town, and it just looks poetic and beautiful. I gotta say, all these years later, these images stay in my mind, and like some of the characters wearing cream pastel or even pink outfits against kind of sober looking background or neutral white looking background. There was splashes of yellow in that movie, the yellow, I don't remember, backgrounds or jumpers. So costumes were interesting, but not super like designer, because I think it's like a TV production, so they may not have always used the most you know, latest fashions, but it's great. Then there is Paolo Malco playing this kind of cliche policeman, because he's basically he's a pipe smoker. I mean, even in the late 80s, a pipe was like something very anachronistic, but it's kind of worked into the story as a, you know, as a nod to Maigret, to Commissar Maigret, of course. Midnight Ripper has quite a few stylish set pieces. It's not overtly violent, but there are quite a few stabbings and some sexual, there are kind of misogynistic overtones to the violence in the movie. The killer's motive, again, it harkens back to certain Dario Argento movies, so there is a justification why it's more female victims being slashed in this film. And there were also some silly moments in the film which, once you've seen them, you'll never forget them. There is like a very odd... there is this girl trying to defend herself from the killer with this... There are also some quite absurd moments where they're quite funny, because you can tell the acting was poor. They just used first takes with some of the... There are some walk-on parts from people who are just obviously not actors, or, you know, one-time actors. So on the whole, I really miss not having that film in my collection in HD. I would really appreciate if somebody would try and find a way. Can we please get Lamberto Bava's film Midnight Ripper, Morirai Mezzanotte out on Blu-ray? That would be awesome. Another movie which is sorely missing on Blu-ray is Renato Polzelli's Delirio Caldo, Delirium. It used to be available from Anchor Bay and later Blue Underground, both the Italian cut and the international cut. And as far as I know, there was a French and Italian DVD release. This movie is both a giallo and a psychodrama. It's very emotional. It's like a crazy telenovela. It's a little bit... It could be seen as a precursor to Żuławski's Possession in that it focuses on a really dysfunctional married couple, and this couple solves their problems through violence and through freaking out and being really alternatively creepy and horny. And there is lots of flashbacks in this film which are kind of sadistic in a comic book way. The film is very small scale. It was made mainly in one location, and it's supposed to be set in Britain, but you'd never guess looking from just the cast, because they all look quite Mediterranean, and there is no absolutely... You see one time, you see the phone box, there's the red telephone box, and you see those cops in them hats once or twice, but the rest of the movie is as Italian as it gets. It's just really one of the least convincing movies set in England next to, well, there is a couple more, but the titles escape me. There used to be a giallo with Adolfo Celi and Leonard Mann, and it's supposed to be set in London. I wish I could remember the title, but you actually see them drive by the ancient ruins, Roman ruins, in a few shots, quite unashamed. So anyway, back to Delirio Caldo. This film stars Rita Calderoni from Reincarnation of Isabel, and she was also in A Quiet Place in the Country. And Mickey Hargitay, he was Schwarzenegger's idol. He was this muscle man before the 1980s steroid muscle man came on stage, and he plays this kind of psychologist, psychiatrist. He usually consults the cops when it comes to some weird murders, but he's actually himself a sexual predator and a murderer, and he goes around trying to seduce and kill girls because he's got some issues. Depending on which version you see, this movie might or might not have links to Jacob's Ladder. Delirio Caldo has fantastic music. There is really wild, very period. There is some funk. There is this cool song in the end, which is apparently performed by one of the actors in the movie. It has an odd style of cinematography, which is not too many wide shots. It stays a lot quite close on the actors, so it has that sort of almost television-y style, yet the subject matter is really strange, and the movie is also quite entertaining, and it's hard to tell what's going to happen next. I appreciate the quality of unpredictability above everything else. If the movie can take me to the point where I don't know what comes next, then my review immediately becomes more positive. So, Delirio Caldo, very violent, lots of, it's a lot of female nudity, and it's really a steamy, sordid, over-the-top melodrama. I think it's worth a look at least once. It may not qualify as a giallo or a normal thriller, but it's definitely a one-of-a-kind movie, which I'm sure it would sell really well if anybody picked it up, whichever version that would be. So please, somebody put out Delirio Caldo on a Blu-ray. One more movie I had to mention is Luigi Cozzi's film The Killer Must Kill Again, also known as Il Ragno, and so on and so forth. It has a few titles. The Dark is Death's Friend, starring George Hilton, Antoine St. John, and in supporting part we have the Spanish actor Eduardo Fajardo. So these are the male cast members. And we have Femi Benussi as the victim, and Cristina Galbo, who was in some awesome movies. She's had a good run, Cristina Galbo. She had some good genre movies under her belt, starting with La Residencia, which is The House That Screamed, and Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. This one, The Killer Must Kill Again. And there is one more, I'm sure I'm missing. There is at least one more where she's also really impressive. The Killer Must Kill Again used to be available on DVD from Mondo Macabro, and it's an odd one. It's very stylish. It's an odd one in Cozzi's filmography because it's a little bit, for Cozzi's standards, it's quite a restrained movie actually. It doesn't go wildly careening from one extreme to the other the way some of his more personal movies tend to, because I think he was kind of hired almost at the last moment. He was hired as a director because the production couldn't find a director to make this movie happen. And it's a co-production with Spain. It's a lovely film to look at. There is nice scope cinematography. The story is based on the Sherbanenko. Giorgio Sherbanenko is this wonderful author, and it concerns two young people, a boy and a girl, who steal a car, and there is a corpse in the trunk, and they are not aware of that. They just go on, sort of riding along the coast, a swim there, a bit of fun there, and they don't know that the killer is on their heels and is going to catch up with them, and they're going to have to pay the price for their, for their daring. This film has some unusual stylistic touches. There is a really nasty sexual violence scene which I don't like. That's one bit about Killer Must Kill Again which has upset me. Even the first time I saw it, I was like, this is a pretty hard scene to watch. So it's probably the nastiest film from Luigi Cozzi, but I wouldn't say that the overall tone of the movie is particularly misogynistic. There are more horrible films out there for sure. But I had to bring this up because I think it's important that people are aware of what they're getting into. I don't even know. I mean, it's been a while since I last watched The Killer Must Kill Again, but I keep waiting for a Blu-ray. And it's not happening, so I might have to, reach back into my, storage and fish out that DVD, because I've seen it a few times, and it came also with a beautiful documentary about Cozzi. The great thing about Luigi Cozzi is his movies are always chock full of references. He's being a Godard fan and being just a connoisseur of pop culture, of literature, of fun genre cinema. He can't help but inject certain references into all his movies. And when it comes to The Killer Must Kill Again, there are some subtle references to Dario Argento and so on. There are very good looking young actors. There is Alessio Rano, who was in Lisa and the Devil, House of Exorcism. It's a fairly low budget giallo. Even again, calling it a giallo might stretch it because we know who the killer is. It's more of a road movie, suspense movie, but I think marketing it as a giallo would really probably help it along very nicely. It's definitely a worthwhile film with some unforgettable visuals and with that beautiful atmosphere. It's one of Cozzi's most accomplished movies and certainly belongs in any Eurocult film lovers collection. So hear me out. So I hope somebody out there can pass this on to the labels. There are a few labels out there who I really like, and maybe one of you might consider these movies. The Killer Must Kill Again from Luigi Cozzi, or Delirium from Renato Polselli, not Delirium from Lamberto Bava, because that's out already, or Morirai a Mezzanotte, Midnight Ripper from Lamberto Bava. That would be awesome. Thanks a lot for watching.